All right, let's dive into a story that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a spy movie. But here's the twist. The spies are AI models, and what they're after, well, it's the future of technology itself. We're talking about a massive, alleged corporate heist, but on an AI scale. So, where does this all kick off? Well, it starts with this absolute bombshell from Anthropic, one of the biggest AI labs in the US. They're claiming that their star model, Claude, was targeted in this huge, coordinated data theft operation. And that leaves us with some pretty big questions, right? Like, who did this? And just how big was this whole thing?
Okay, so let's set the stage. In one corner, you've got the accuser, Anthropic, and in the other, not one, but three major Chinese AI firms, DeepSeek, Moonshot AI, and Minimax. And what Anthropic is saying is that these companies allegedly work together to literally siphon off the secret sauce that makes their AI, Claude, so powerful.
Now, the scale of this alleged operation, it's just staggering. I mean, we are not talking about a few thousand queries here. We're talking more than 16 million interactions with Claude. To give you some perspective, this isn't just a couple of curious developers poking around an API. No way. Anthropic is claiming this was a systematic, high-volume attack with just one goal: to extract its capabilities.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you pull off 16 million interactions? Well, the allegation is that they used something like 24,000 fake accounts. I mean, think about that. Creating that many accounts isn't something you do on a whim. It points to a really sophisticated operation, one specifically designed to get around Anthropic's rules and their regional lockdowns.
And when you actually break down who did what, the numbers get even crazier. So while all three companies were allegedly involved, Minimax's campaign was on another level. We're talking over 13 million of those interactions. And according to Anthropic, they weren't just asking random questions. They were going after the high-value stuff, like Claude's ability to code and use complex software tools.
Okay, so what was the point of all this? What was the end game for these millions of queries? Well, the accusation all comes down to a technique called AI distillation. And what's so fascinating about this is that distillation is a totally normal, legitimate thing in the industry, which leads to the big question. How did they allegedly turn this standard tool into a weapon?
So first, let's just quickly get on the same page about what AI distillation even is. You can think of it like teaching by example. You have a student AI model that basically learns by copying a more powerful teacher model. It watches the master and learns to mimic how it works. It's kind of like creating a super skilled apprentice just by having them shadow an expert.
And this is where you see the two sides of the distillation coin, right? On one side, it's used for perfectly legitimate stuff all the time. A company might use it on its own big model to make a smaller, faster version that can run on your phone. But the allegation here? It's that these companies used it to basically copy Claude's homework. They could get all those advanced skills without spending the years and, frankly, the mountains of cash it takes to build it from the ground up.
So let's walk through the alleged playbook. Anthropic says it was a pretty clear four-step process. First, you use proxy services to hide where you really are. Step 2, you create those thousands and thousands of fake accounts. Then, step 3, you launch the main attack, just hammering the system with coordinated prompts at a huge scale. And the final step, the whole point of the exercise, you extract Claude's most valuable skills, its really sophisticated reasoning and coding powers. But this is where the story gets a lot bigger than just some corporate fight. Anthropic isn't just talking about stolen secrets. They're framing this as a potential threat to national security. The argument is that the fallout from this could be way more serious than just a company losing its intellectual property. So Anthropic points to three major risks here. First off, these copied AI models, they might not have the same safety features built in, which could make them, well, pretty dangerous. Second, you've got the scary possibility that these unchecked AI capabilities could get plugged into military or surveillance systems. And third, and this one is a really big deal, this whole thing could undermine US export controls on those super advanced computer chips. It makes it look like other countries can just bypass the hardware rules and catch up anyway. And that brings us to a really critical question, doesn't it? If companies can just close the AI gap this way, does that mean the whole US strategy of controlling access to advanced chips has failed? But here's the twist. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, he has a really powerful counter-argument. He doesn't see this as a failure of export controls at all.
In fact, he argues this is exactly why those controls are more important than ever. The real goal, he says, is to stop rivals from getting the sheer computing power they'd need to build the next generation of AI from the ground up.
And that really puts this whole thing in perspective, you know? This isn't just a squabble between companies. This is a scene from the much bigger, high-stakes geopolitical race for AI dominance between the US and China. We're talking about who's going to lead the next technological revolution.
What's also really interesting is how this whole thing highlights the different philosophies in the AI world. On one side, you have a model like Claude. It's premium, it's focused on safety, it's built for big businesses. Then you have a challenger like DeepSeek, which is all about being cheap, open source, and it's a beast at things like math. These are two totally different game plans for winning the global AI race.
And this is a really important point to make. If we just set the allegations aside for a second, what DeepSeek has accomplished is still pretty remarkable. Getting this close to top-tier performance for a fraction of the cost, that's a natural step in how technology evolves. But the fact that it was a Chinese company that made this leap forward first, that's what makes it so significant from a geopolitical standpoint. It's just a huge signal of how fast this competition is heating up.
And all of this leaves us with the big central question, doesn't it? In this global race for AI supremacy, which is moving so fast and has such huge consequences, that line between innovation and espionage, it's getting really, really blurry. So who gets to write the rules for this new game? And maybe even more important, in a world full of digital shadows and proxy servers, who could possibly enforce them?